This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, February 18th Monmouth City Council meeting. And this evening, we will start off with our regular council meeting, and we also have a meeting of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency. So to start off, we will have City Recorder Phyllis Bowman with the roll call, please.
Counselor Beltz.
Here.
Counselor Carey.
Here.
Counselor Lopez.
Present.
Counselor McKeel.
Here.
Counselor Oberst.
Here.
Counselor Ridgway.
Present.
Mayor Coons.
I am present. And Counselor Lopez, will you lead us in flag salute this evening, please? And we do have a consent calendar on the agenda this evening, and that includes the minutes of the council meeting of February 4th, our last meeting. If there are additions or corrections, this would be the time to speak up.
I move to approve the consent calendar. Second.
Thank you, Councillor McKeel, for the motion and Councillor Beltz for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? So that Phyllis can record those votes. Thank you very much. That brings us to public comments, and this is the time that we receive public comment on items not on the agenda. And that time is limited to 3 minutes. We do have someone in the audience this evening. So if I can call, get your timer ready. Chip North, if you'd like to come up, and note that when you start to speak, be sure and press in the center there. A red light will come on. That means the mic is on, and be sure and make sure that everyone can hear online. And we'll let you know as time goes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors.
And sorry, your name and residence.
My
for
name
the
is
record.
Chip North, and I live west of here on Ferns Corner Road. I've been a member of this community for over 40 years. I would like to request that the Mayor and City Council instruct the Monmouth City Police to follow ORS 181A-820 and exchange any and all information to the Immigration's Customs Enforcement Agency if requested. It is in the interest of all involved to remove illegal invaders from our nation in the safest and most expedient method possible. The majority position, according to a CBS News poll, YouGov poll dated February 5th through 7th, 2025, that 59% of the American people approve of the Trump administration's program to deport immigrant illegally in this country. The majority position of American citizens are in support of the Trump policy. And the American people expect their elected employees to put legal citizens first. In addition, I stand in opposition to the statement referencing the indigenous tribes and the land throughout Oregon. There is no one alive today that took part in any of the negative actions referenced in this statement. This is the fact. This statement is recorded on the agenda every week that I've been here at your meetings and read at the statement portion of the meeting. This is opinion. This statement only serves to create division and to impute shame to the law-abiding and hardworking taxpayers of this community by their elected employees on this council. I respect your First Amendment right to do so, and will use this statement to exercise mine. I would respectfully acknowledge that neither of our statements, mine or yours, represent 100% following in this community. Respectfully. Thank you.
right,
Thank you.
thank you. And are there any other public comments online, Phyllis, or were any submitted in advance?
Mayor Coons, there were none submitted in advance, and I don't see anyone online.
All right. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the business agenda portion of the meeting and our first item of business. Looks like our annual liquor license renewals. Invite Sergeant Strack to fill us in on that.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Sergeant Mike Strack, and I work for your police department. And it's that time of year for the annual liquor license renewals. I reviewed the police reports related to the above businesses for the year of 2024. Upon conducting the review, all of the businesses have had no police responses related to the sale of alcohol, any violations of OLCC rules and regulations. The following information is based on police-related incidents at 2 of our establishments. I know every year I come to you and I give you information on Jack's Pub, and I know you guys are very familiar with the things that I usually say regarding their establishment. This year's a little bit different. I would like to acknowledge on their part the hard work that they have done and the fact that they have worked with us and taken some of our suggestions and actually put them into place. The vast majority of the calls for service are reported directly from the staff at the bar. There's been a noticeable effort on their part to call things in. Fight calls that we have responded to were directly related to their bar security, escorting people out of the bar or refusing entry due to fake ID issues. These actions resulted in the security guards actually being assaulted in the course of their duties. The trespass calls were from staff asking officers to assist in removing patrons who were causing issues. And there were 3 reported incidents where staff called officers to check on possible fake IDs, which we did find that they were fake and they were trespassed from the property and dealt with appropriately. So I would like to acknowledge that the fact that we had talked to them last year about getting armed security and actually beefing up things so that way we would have less issues. And they took that and ran with it, and they have security the majority of the time now, and they're the ones that are actually calling us and asking for assistance. So I think even though that we're still getting calls there, we're never going to be 0 calls at that establishment, but they've been doing a great job, and I just want to put that on record that I don't want to come in here every year and just say all the negative things they do, but when they actually do positive things, I want that represented. Also, I just wanted to mention for Sing Fe, a little over a year ago, they became a full bar, not just a restaurant. And there were some growing pains, obviously, with becoming a full service bar. To begin with, we did get several calls for fights, disturbances, and trespasses. But that was actually a pretty short period of time. Over the last half of the year, those calls went down significantly, almost to 0. And I think it was for proper response. We were very quick to respond there, and we took action quickly, and they got the hint, and they were able to, nip things in the butt a lot earlier than just trying to see if things would work themselves out. So with that, we have an option to send recommendation to OLCC in favor of approving all the establishments listed in the license renewal, send a recommendation in favor of approving certain listed establishments, or we can send a recommendation against approving of each of the establishments in the license renewal. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. And you've been doing this a long time, so I'm sure it is rewarding to see establishments take advice and work cooperatively, and
Yes,
that's great news.
It's very refreshing.
Are there questions of the sergeant, Counselor Oberst?
Not a question so much as just the observation that you're always going to have incidents somewhere in town. And it's nice to see that these folks are working hard to resolve things before they get started, hopefully. And when they do get started, getting you all involved as needed. So I want to, I sort of tracking this over the last 3-4 years. It's been encouraging to see the turnaround that they've had there. Certain establishments attract certain clientele, and sometimes those clientele have a propensity to be a little bit maybe wilder than in other establishments. It's just the nature of the beast, I guess. So, Madam Mayor, if there are no other questions, I would make a motion.
Well, we can have questions, I guess, after the motion. Go ahead.
The motion would be, I move to send OLCC a recommendation to renew all the liquor licenses listed in this report.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst, for the motion and Councilor Carey for the second. So additional questions or concerns? Yeah, Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A comment in favor of the motion. When I look at this list of businesses and I read the incidents and hear our sergeants recount of the way that they have worked collaboratively with the police department, I see a vibrant business community and a well-running system. And I'd like to suggest that the calls for response are one metric. But how those calls are handled at the business level is something that can occasionally be lost in the data. And I deeply appreciate the information and that added context that you bring to these discussions each year. And I wholly support this motion and appreciate all of the local businesses listed here. Thank you.
All right. And just our annual reminder that this is part of the OLCC process. They require us to review these. They require us to determine whether or not to forward approval, but they don't take our approval or disapproval necessarily into account. They are not required to depend on our approval or disapproval as they go forward to review these licenses according to their standards. So any further questions? All right. Would you like to do a roll call, Phyllis, or are we okay with just why don't you go ahead and do a roll call on this?
Counselor Ridgway,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Lopez,
Aye.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Belts.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sergeant
Thank you, guys.
Strack.
Thank you.
And that brings us to a report on our business technical assistance program that we ran for a few years. Our Community and Economic Development Director, Suzanne Duffner, and she'll introduce her guest to us.
Yes, I will. Good evening, Mayor and honorable members of the City Council. My name is Suzanne Duffner, Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Monmouth. And I am excited to be joined tonight by Tori Stutzman. She is the owner of Sparklet Designs, who is the consultant that worked with us on the Business Technical Assistance Program. So she's done amazing things helping our local businesses, and I didn't want to forget anything and be able to answer all the questions accurately. So hopefully she can keep me on track. But so we've had a lot of great success over the last 3 years. I don't know if you'll recall, but the council had some earlier discussions on how to spend the federal ARPA dollars that were intended to help with COVID recovery and build back more resiliently. And so a portion of those were set aside to help specifically with the businesses that were hard impacted as a result of the pandemic. So, which was very appreciated by the businesses. And we took several different approaches on how to best serve our local business community. And I've outlined those into a little report. So I just want to give a brief overview of those and then have an opportunity for questions. So One of the ways that we help support our business was through some additional promotion to try to encourage folks to make that conscious choice to shop local at our, especially our mom and pa's, our independently owned businesses that felt a lot of those impacts. And so for 2 different years, we ran the Love Local utility credit program. It felt kind of weird this year not running that again, but those funds came from the ARPA program. So it ended when those ended. But this Love Local utility credit program was an incentive for our utility customers to shop at eligible local small businesses, and then they saved their receipts, they turned them into us, and they were able to get credits on their energy or their electric bills. And so it was kind of had the added benefit of during those higher electric usage months to give folks a little bit of cut on their utility bill, and then also benefit the local businesses. So put some numbers in there. Actually, 2023 was a little bit higher in terms of the credits that were redeemed. We had just under $4,200 that were given out in utility credits. But I'd like to put that number of how much that leveraged in local spending, so that those receipts that came in for that shopping local was about 14,500. So we can see how that was a real good multiplier in getting people out and spending more than they even had to get the credit. The 2024 year, just last year, dipped down a bit to 3,300 in credits, but again, leveraging almost $13,000 in local funds benefiting our businesses. And we try to make it as easy as possible on our businesses. They didn't have to track that, so all they had to do was give a receipt, and the city handled, and through our finance department was very supportive in helping us administer that program. So kudos and thanks to them. The second program that I mentioned that Tori and her company Sparklet Designs helped us with was a technical assistance program. We had a little bit of experience early on in the pandemic of doing a business technical assistance program, and we found that to be so widely appreciated and successful that we wanted to replicate that again with the ARPA funds. So this technical assistance program offered kind of one-on-one services to our local businesses. They would sign up, and then they'd get to choose from a menu of items that they felt best suited in their needs in terms of making them a stronger business and bringing in more customers to their site. So a lot of them had to do with marketing and use of social media, websites, logos, taking professional photographs so that they could promote and sell and do advertisements for their products. And the real neat thing about this program is that not only was it helping our local brick and mortar businesses, but it was also helping the more service office professional service folks in our community as well. So our web designers, our videographers, I think most all of them were actually from Monmouth and Independence. So it was local businesses helping and serving local businesses and making those relationships and that networking. And wow, I mean, I can't say enough about it. There's a really great attachment in the report packets that has more information about it that Tori prepared to give you some more the numbers and details and stories behind that. But we were able to serve 15 businesses with that, and happy to report that 11 of those were minority-owned businesses as well. So we're able to help a lot of the small businesses. And yeah, so it was just, I think one of the great things about it is it really helped build back the trust and the relationships and the spirit of collaboration. And we saw some of that suffer with some division during the pandemic. And so it was great to be able to have an opportunity to build that back. So again, the report has more details on that, but I think it continues to benefit and serve not only the businesses, but the Monmouth Business Association. The city's been able to use and access those business photos so that when we want to do a shared collaborative marketing effort, we have really great photos. We even use some of the videography to help with that coin news segment that went on recently to help with tourism promotion. So we are still continuing to use those materials. But I don't know if Tori, you wanted to say anything else about that I missed? Okay, there's questions that can help with that. And then the last two ones I just mentioned on there were the Marketing Mondays, and that was a real neat partnership with the City of Independence. We'd had businesses expressing a desire to have more training opportunities and networking opportunities. This particular set of classes dealt specifically with marketing topics, where we had kind of industry experts that came in and talked about different topics, such as Google My Business, do's and don'ts of websites, Canva, graphic arts, and AI. It was kind of interesting little anecdote. We held some of those meetings in our library, and we actually crashed our Wi-Fi. We discovered we need to add the boost to be able to get more Wi-Fi service around AI there. But yeah, so we rotated the classes between Independence Civic Center and Monmouth, and so it was just a great range of different types of businesses, not just brick and mortar, but home-based businesses and all different sizes and industries. So there was some neat cross-networking going on there. Some folks even, had come from some of the unincorporated area to help learn some things and partner with other businesses. So those classes ranged inside from 20 to 35 businesses, depending on the topic. So it was great partnership with our sister city. And then lastly, the one that we just most recently rolled out was the Small Business Resiliency Grant Program. And this was the majority of the funds were actually passed on to our local businesses. They were matching grants, and businesses needed to select grant projects that would make them stronger in the event of future natural disasters or hazards or extreme weather. And so we had a lot of those projects, businesses that took advantage of updating outdated HVAC system. They'd had kitchens that didn't have sufficient air conditioning, with employees working in very extreme heat conditions, and replacing windows. And so it was great to see the variety of those projects. We awarded about $131,000 in grants, and that leveraged $905,000 just over that in private investment. So, again, trying to leverage and encourage that spending, and also all the while helping those businesses be stronger and better prepared. So great to see those funds. And it came at a very important time because we were low on urban renewal grant funds at that time. So it just kind of came in and helped us keep being able to offer some incentives to keep that progress going of our businesses improving themselves. So that's all I had prepared for you. I'm happy to answer questions with Tori if there's any questions you had about those programs. Really appreciate the opportunity that you gave us to work with the business community to help them. I do feel like they were very impactful and probably kept a lot of businesses from going under. So, yeah.
Comments, questions?
I have a couple. How might we be able to continue this, especially the technical assistance piece? With our own funding, with other grant opportunities, what's the future for that? Because I agree with your analysis. It's been impactful. How do we leverage on that prior success?
Okay. So one of the ways that we're trying to extend some of that technical assistance is, like you said, it's going after new grants opportunities. And Tori and I are actually working on one through Travel Oregon, where they provide, so it's called, strengthening your tourism infrastructure. And so the proposed project, so we haven't submitted the application, although we've been invited to submit it, is to provide some technical assistance to local business owners that want to make their businesses more acceptable to the public, to people with disabilities. So we are in Monmouth, that we're home to the School for the Deaf, Blind, and ASL programs that are known nationally around the world, or excuse me, at least around the nation. I don't know about the world yet, but trying to get there. And so they often will have conferences and trainings where they're bringing folks from the deafblind community in. And part of that training is coming into businesses and being patroning those businesses. And so business owners are looking for tools and resources that will help make their business open and more friendly and inclusive to those customers, and also have more customers that are able to come in and be patrons to the business. So, that's one example, a very specific training, business technical assistance that we're applying for some grant funds through. And so I think it'll be looking at, partnerships again, if there's ways to work with the Indie Commons, for example, and Kate Schwartzler and the great work that she is doing. They have various pub talks on different topics like finance, business finance, food licensing. So part of it, I think, is the communication. Like, there are opportunities out there for technical assistance. It's making them known and then accessible, and so those are a couple of the ways. But it's on my mind of, like, how do we, that one-on-one piece, meeting people where they're at. I mean, you can't replace that, right? Like, telling people to go to a class at a certain time, you're always going to automatically miss somebody that's opening early or closing, in the afternoon, or somebody that's, at the opposite schedule for their business. So, I don't know. Still trying to figure that piece of it out.
One of the things that came through in the report, and you sort of highlighted it again, and that was the collaboration that occurred, amongst businesses, the 15 businesses that were touched. And that might be a low cost, no cost sort of way to continue that collaboration of, a business after hours for a reunion for the technical assistance crowd or something. So we could continue to capture that success that we had. But it sounds like you're working on that, or
or the MBA, the Monmouth Business Association, that came up through their strategic planning to do some of those kind of smaller bite-sized training opportunities, or just networking, businesses learning from other businesses. What point of sale system are you using that's working for you? And being able to do that in kind of a informal setting and offering them at different times. So, thank you.
Last thing for me, Madam Mayor, is I'm really disappointed, and I understand why, that we lost the local restaurant, the
utility credit.
What was it, Live Local or Love Local? And it really, and it struck me 100 times, and I've mentioned it before, but, if we appreciate businesses in town, we're glad that they're here, but we need to support them. And some are able to do that better than others. But if the hardware store has got something that is 25 cents more than you can get over at Home Depot, let's support what we have. And this was a good way to do that with the Love Local piece. And, I don't know, I mean, we're not flush with any kind of money, but at some juncture, we may want to evaluate whether we would want to fund a portion of that ourselves in support of the business community. And to your point, in a February where, it's sort of after
Sales
the
are slower,
holidays, and
and
we've got higher heating costs and that sort of thing. I don't know that we get any traction on that, but that might be something we consider. I guess $7,200.
I was surprised at how reasonable, that it actually ended up
Yes,
being.
so it really wasn't a lot, but it was impactful for those businesses, I would assume. And I think we could probably market that, or not market it, but recognize the participants a little more, if that ever comes around again. But anyway, it's all good. Thank you. And thank you, Tori, for your work. It's very impressive.
Counselor Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I always love speaking after Councilor Carey because he has such astute observations and ideas. I would like to just add that while this initiative is focused on small businesses, local businesses, I've seen the positive impacts that it has for the community as a whole. The vibrancy that it brings to the town. I think we all love our local businesses, love being able to walk down the street and patronize them, and love any excuse to be able to do that a little bit more deeply. I see this strengthening not just the local businesses, but the larger businesses as well, and just invigorating that economic vibrancy that our town has. And so I would support exploring any opportunities to continue or expand these programs in the future were we able to identify appropriate funding for them.
Counselor Oberst, if you have something new to add, go ahead.
So I would like to just tag on to Councilor Carey's observation about driving to Salem versus Love Local, because by the time you figure in this is, just asking people in the community to think about this, by the time you figure in the cost of getting yourself over there and back, it's often actually cheaper to purchase locally. And we have a lot of nice retail opportunities in town. Don't forget to take advantage of. That's all.
Counselor McKeel.
I would just like to add to Councilor Oberst that if you want to have a smaller carbon footprint, buy local.
Anybody else? All righty. Thank you, Suzanne.
All right,
And thank you very much, Tori, for your work. And that brings us to our lone work session item. And tonight we have our city manager, Rochelle Roden, reporting on the trolley.
Thank you, Mayor. So when I started working here, one of the items on the future agendas was a trolley IGA. And so as I attended the trolley meetings
And
started,
for those of you who think IGA is something to do with grocery stores,
it's an intergovernmental agreement. And this would be between the City of Monmouth, the City of Independence, and also Western Oregon University. So previous staff had put together a draft. We were working through it. I worked with Kenna West, City Manager of Independence, to kind of look at the form of this. And so basically we, what you have in your packet, and this is obviously a work session item, so totally open for any changes or advice that you have to make this a successful endeavor. Basically, it would create two bodies, and that would be the Monmouth Independence Trolley Operations Commission and also the Monmouth Independence Trolley Advisory Committee. The MyTalk, or the Operations Committee, will be created to oversee the day-to-day operations of the trolley service. This commission will consist of 7 members, 3 staff from each city, and 1 from the public transportation provider, which at this time is Chariots. The city representatives will include city managers or their designees and 2 other staff who participate in the operations of the trolley, city planner, communications director, that type of thing. The MyTalk's primary responsibilities are to developing and drafting operation rules, policies, and procedures for trolley management, to ensure service targets set by the advisory committee are met, to maintain and secure funding for the trolley service, and to submit an annual work plan to the advisory committee. Monmouth will continue to be the fiduciary, and no funds may be expended without prior approval from the advisory committee, ensuring accountability and transparency in financial matters, and that would be done through the budgeting process. A budget would be submitted. MyTalk would meet at least monthly and follow Oregon State Public Meeting Law, and then we move into the advisory committee. That would be consisted of 11 appointed members, including representatives from both cities, Western Oregon University, and community stakeholders. This composition will ensure diverse representation, including 3 appointees from each city's governing body, the president of Western Oregon University or their designee, a representative of Western Oregon University's student body, Additional positions, which would represent individuals with disabilities, people age 65 and over, low-income populations, and a non-voting youth member. MyTAC would, and they could appoint additional non-voting members as they see fit. The advisory committee will have the authority to approve operating rules, policies, and budgets proposed by MyTAC. The advisory committee will meet at least quarterly and follow Oregon public meeting law requirements. And then this committee plays a crucial role in ensuring that the trolley service meets the needs of our communities and responds effectively to the demands of residents, students, visitors, and local businesses. The My Trolley has shown through its large ridership, over 10,000 rides a month in the first 12 months, that this urban service in a rural community is very successful. The council's insights are crucial for establishing a sustainable framework to manage, operate, and fund this service effectively. So the first step in this process is to come to you, and then it will go to the independent city council. They will review it in a work session as well. Then we'll go to Western Oregon University, and then it'll come back. So are there questions or comments or? Please.
Councilor Lopez, then Councilor Oben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I am enthused that we are working with our neighbors and the university in the creation of this committee. I'm interested in the division of roles between both committees to ensure that each committee will hold to their role and not overstep onto one another's role. So I do see some of this in here, but I'm concerned about the creation of two very similar committees and whatever firewalls might be in place of that expansion of roles there. I also would be interested in understanding and this is item E, item 2E of the My Talk committee, the community committee. Or no, not My Talk, I'm sorry, My TAC. It's going to take a little while to get these two acronyms right. Item 2E of the My TAC committee. I note that there is a non-voting youth member. I would encourage, I'm not sure if we have, and maybe I missed it, definition of what youth is. Different bodies consider youth to be under 24. Some consider it minor youth only. I would also encourage that if we are classifying this individual as a key component and demographic of the community, that they should be given a vote instead of a non-voting position. I know I wrapped a lot of questions in there, and some thoughts, and I look forward to your response.
In regards to a firewall between the two committees, I think we try to do that by saying operational commission compared to advisory committee. And I think the advisory committee was born out of the idea that we need folks to lobby for funding, and the advisory committee could be focused on that while staff is worried about the operation. I think as we set this up and the budget gets approved, the plan gets approved, it'll be very explained and very separated as to what each committee or commission does.
Wouldn't we also create a charter, for example, for the advisory committee that would have much more detail about what their role is and how they would operate? So I think that's where a lot of that would come, especially for the advisory committee.
And bylaws, right? So in regards to the definition of youth, Madam Mayor, do you have any would you want it to be someone that's high school age, so under 18? Is that the demographic that we were looking for? Because we do know that a lot of the school students are using the trolley for after school activities and to get to school. And so maybe that was to have someone under 18, and that was why it was non-voting. I'm not too sure, but we could obviously change that if the council thinks that would be the best way to go.
Yeah, I think that was one of the thoughts. We, obviously, if we have a Western student, we have somebody else who's in the community who would be older than 18, and that person would be a voting member. So I think this thought was representing another demographic of our youth who are big users of the trolley. But yes, we would need to spell that out more in a charter.
So to wrap around that, and this is to both Madam Manager and Madam Mayor, is there a position here for the school district since so many kids are riding the trolley? We brought Western in part along the president and students because they ride it a lot. So do our public school students. So just putting it out there for the cities and the district to discuss.
And I'll also note, when we mention that the advisory committee, each city would have 3 appointees. You know, we know, for example, that might typically include a staff. It might typically include a council liaison and then a community member. For example, that's what we do on the MyNet board. But we also know that as council liaisons, we're all kind of committeed up. And so this doesn't have to be council, it doesn't have to be, right? This can be anybody in the community. So for example, maybe we would appoint someone representing another entity potentially. So yeah, something to consider, but I wear my other hat. I know the school district doesn't have a vested interest in the operation of the trolley yet. If the trolley ever charges a fare, then there's something that school district can get engaged in to help fund that operation. But until then, it doesn't. So, but yeah, Councilor Ridgway.
Thank you. So first, I want to just acknowledge there's been a lot of hard work that has been put into this creation of something new from local members of the council, members of the community, city staff. There was a lot of involvement from the state level as well. You mentioned there's a $3 million startup grant that was supplied so that this could get off the ground. And so we're here today to talk about kind of what the next steps look like. And so I want to make sure that as we go forward, this is done methodically, and that we thoroughly discuss any potential issues as they come up, and try to make sure that if it is going to move forward, that it's done successfully. So I have several questions kind of from a devil's advocate perspective. As you know, probably the majority of our citizens don't use the trolley, and so questions that they might ask is something that doesn't directly benefit them. You mentioned the makeup of the committees being all of them unelected, so accountability. The question of how would constituents have impact or voice in these committees? Is there any kind of mechanism for people to voice concerns, appeals, concerns, any of those things?
To answer the first question, so both would operate under public meeting law, and so there would be a chance for public comment at the beginning of the meetings. There's one way for that to occur. And again, with a charter for like the advisory committee, they may be able to put additional language in regards to that. But that's how I would.
Okay, thank you.
It's, for example, MyNet operates that way. So we, as a council, don't have say necessarily in how MyNet operates, but it is a board with members that is open to the public and subject to public comment and all the regular stuff. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Similar to that. Did you have additional?
I have several, but I can share.
Oh, go ahead, and then you can get a couple in, and then Councilor Belts.
Okay. And so as far as funding goes, what is the threshold to determine whether the trolley is sustainable at the local funding level? And what would be the role of the city in response if we're splitting I'm assuming splitting the cost in some proportionate way between the three entities, how do we determine whether there needs to be an increase in our funding level or compensate for maybe one of the other partners falling on tough times? That would be a kind of a sustainability question.
So right now, we are currently trying to figure out the funding mechanism. As you noted, that it was originally started with a $3 million grant. So we were trying to get another $2 million grant through Representative Evans' office this year. And so part of the, one of the main goals of the operations committee and first, and as well as the advisory, is to figure out how we're going to fund this. Are we going to keep it low barrier where there is no cost? And then how are we going to subsidize that? So those are all going to be questions that are going to come before both of these boards. Probably the operations will submit to the advisory what the plan will be and how we'll move forward. But that all has to be decided. We're still kind of in a, what is it? Let me first, sorry. Yeah. So that's a big piece of the whole thing, is how are we going to do it? Most public transportation systems, none of them are fully self-funded. I think New York subway system is like 75%, but obviously they charge a fee, you know, so it's a situation where it's hard to fully fund yourself. And so, but if we want to keep it low barrier for the community, so then of course we're going to need to figure out how to be able to fund that.
Thank you.
Councilor Belts?
Thank you. I want to, I'm not familiar, I'm not aware that we've done any real ridership data in terms of whether it's residents or anyone else. I know the ridership numbers, but is that something in the plan? Given what Councilor Ridgway had said, I don't know that it's residents or not residents or students, or so are we going to be getting that data at some point?
That is something we can ask. We just, Cherry's just loaded new CAD software onto the trolleys. So that's something we can talk to them about and request if we'd like. If there's some way we could screen riders as they're coming on to find out where they're from. I don't know if the system automatically could somehow determine that, but I can look into that.
Again, with, 17 years of public transit background, I know it's possible to do onboarding, and it's certainly something I would think so that we can say definitively, this is who is using the trolley. And just a reminder that while it may not be everybody using it, the people that do use it have now come to depend on it. And when we've built, or people that use public transit tend to depend on it as their mode of getting to medical appointments, to their jobs, to school, etc. So just please keep that in mind.
Just a note, next week, the communication directors from Monmouth and Independence, so Sabre and Emmanuel, are going to be doing a video. I asked them to go out and get writer stories, and so that we can submit a one-pager for support for the transportation bill. So they're going to be out talking to writers and doing so. We'll get some of that during that, which might be helpful, but I can still talk with the trolley, with Chariots, to see if we can get better data.
Councilor Carey, and then if you have additional, you can go after.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions, and the first one I'd like to go to, I think, if I can get my screen to move here, which I can't. If you go to item G, I think of the staff, here we go. Of the staff report, I got it. You said if you get on the, is that, yeah, that is the intergovernmental agreement. Item D says the parties have determined that the demand for intercity transit service, including service to Western, is sufficient, and the benefits to the parties and the residents, students and employees and visitors they serve is sufficient to make continuation of the public trolley financially feasible. That doesn't make it financially feasible. That makes it attractive to continue. But there's nothing that says sustainability or feasibility by the early part of that sentence. So just in terms of how that's communicated, that doesn't work in my mind.
So-
And these are questions necessarily not to be answered tonight, but they are significant questions to me. And I think that the questions about how this is all going to work, and I've got a lot of those, but a lot of that can be solved, I think, in the charter that's actually formed. So a lot of this, some of the picayune stuff that I might say, just go ahead and tell me, John, we'll deal with that later, and I'll move on. But an important one, and the first two really, who's going to staff these commissions? The commission and the committees. Who's going to staff that? We're required to meet open meeting laws. That's notice, that's minutes, and that's maintaining records. Publishing an agenda, and that's a rhetorical, but it needs to be answered, and I think it needs to be answered soon as we forge an agreement. Because my second question is, I'm looking for things for independents to do. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff. We got the barn, which I'm going to guess includes a lot of the maintenance. We got the financial deal that we're the financial agent on that. Glad to have them. But I'm curious what they're going to do to contribute to this enterprise. Same with Western Oregon. What are they going to do to contribute to the enterprise? And that needs to be embedded in an agreement. It can be fleshed out, I'm certain, in a charter. So that's rhetorical, unless you have an answer, and I doubt that you have thought about one. You got one?
I have one to the first part.
I'll take it.
So if you look at section 9 in regards to who will be staffing it, it states that at their first meeting, they will each calendar year appoint a chair and a vice chair, and then also a secretary who needs not be a member of the commission. So that would be the city recorders, I would assume, from both cities that would then run that. So maybe one does one and one does the other. We haven't isolated that, but it is included in both the committee and the commission.
I noted that, and that was my assumption. And, conceivably, there could be, especially early on, a fair few meetings, one a month. That's adding another task to Phyllis, and in this case, and her counterpart over at Independence. So I think we need to make sure we've got the bandwidth to do that. And likely we do, but that's just adding another layer. Now, we talked about the budget. What would the budget process be? Because it would be, would that fall on Monmouth as the fiscal agent, or what role would Independence play in that? And if so, then we've got there's a public process that would go through. That's a whole nother layer.
Yeah. So because Monmouth is the fiduciary, Monmouth would complete the budget, and we have a transit fund currently to start doing that. I am not sure if Independence actually budgets in that form. This is not even in here, but in talking with Kenna, we were talking about as this goes forward and as, if we can find the funding and it becomes something that's continuous, possibly hiring a trolley manager that would come in, that would work in Monmouth, that would then manage and all of that. But that is really preliminary, but we think it's a really good idea because we are seeing how much staff time goes into it. A lot of my time goes into it. A lot of Carter's time goes into it, Saber's time as well on their side. So yes, it's kind of, the staff has absorbed all of the labor at this point, and so we do need to figure out what that's going to look like, and would a trolley manager be the best bet, which I think it would, but that would again be, we'd have to be able to fund it. So
yeah, we're trying to fund the operation of the thing. So anyway, there's more to be done on that. Okay. One of the things that I would just suggest, because in another organization we do this, but right now and this would probably be in the charter, But I think we need to be careful how we schedule the meetings, because it would make sense for the advisory group to meet after the operational, if there's things to be done as a result of the operational deliberations. That would be an important piece of it. I think also, as we lay out, and again, probably elsewhere, but staggered terms, you know, for the, so you don't have, after 2 years, you got a big, you know, all 11 are gone, or, you know, because the more stable one is going to be the operational. But the other one, you know, I wonder about the advisory group. I mean, how the ability for them to assign tasks, you know, Councilor Belts asked about ridership data and so forth. That would be one of the first things that we ought to have. And that's going to require, you know, some funding. That's going to require some, you know, personnel, very likely. And here is a committee that's going to assign work and assign dollars to, you know, to agents, or, you know, to the agency. It'll just be interesting to see how that goes. Final thing, you know, on one of the deals that it talks, this is under the advisory group, approve, you know, the budget and all expenditures. There needs to, the operation group has to have some flexibility to be able to authorize expenditures in an emergency, in an ongoing basis. If we don't have a month, you know, a meeting for a month, you can't be waiting on a repair for the trolley. So you'd need to build something in there, I think, that there is, you know, approve anything that's not already budgeted, for argument's sake. If you got it in the budget, operations people can spend it. But if it's not, that's a different deal. Okay, that's more than enough. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ridgway and then Councillor Ober.
Thank you. And I appreciate Councillor Carey's comments, specifically about the distinction between ridership and I don't know if you used the word demand, but there, to me, that there doesn't seem to be a direct correlation. If ridership is free and there's no cost or no fare that's paid, it's hard to use a business model to look at that. A lot of things can be offered for free. Of course, if it's a commodity, people will look to take advantage of that. So I'm not sure that whatever the numbers might be right now are a great reflection of the true need for folks that have transportation challenges, as much as, well, it wasn't here 3 years ago and now it is, so might as well take advantage of it. It'd be nice if there was some way to experiment with what the true demand would be. I don't know what that would look like if it was a you know, a $1 a ride type of a nominal fee, just to see, you know, what does that do to the ridership. But we're on the verge of creating something that doesn't really exist, with the exception of public safety, and that's offering something for free to a very small, relatively number of people. It's if you've ever had any experience taking away or seen anything. So I'm trying to think of the word; it's escaping me. Social Security would be an example of a entitled. Thank you. Too many syllables. Entitlement that we're creating here in the city of Monmouth. So it's something we just need to be very wary of, because it's really hard to reel that back in once it's out there. So I would look to get more information on true demand before we just assume that ridership equals the need. Thank you.
If there's one metric that I can offer you, I attended an ODOT meeting, and so in the first year, the trolley had 125,000 rides in that year. There were other lines in Woodburn that were talking about 25,000 rides. So you can see that for some, and even a bigger city, like 125,000 rides is a lot of rides. Now, whether that, I understand what you're saying about demand, and we can see if we can find that. But when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, we really do have a lot of people riding this trolley. So just so you know, I wanted to share that with you. Thank you for your comment.
So I think I started talking with city managers about the need for this stuff. And I say city managers plural because it predated my first conversation with you, Rochelle. And so I'm excited to see this document as a starting point for actually having such a body in place. I recognize that the way that we keep this thing going is with outside funding, at least for now. And in order to do that, you need to have bodies like this in place in order to receive that funding. So I have been absolutely floored by the uptake on this trolley. Did people used to get around other ways? Yeah, I guess so. I sort of figure every time a trolley goes across the intersection down here with 10 people on it, that's 5 or 10 cars that aren't in line to go across through the traffic light, or waiting for pedestrians at intersections as they're walking in the rain. It has provided an alternative that does not exist in very many rural communities. It is kind of groundbreaking in a lot of ways. We're ahead of the curve on this and providing, typically rural mass transit is things like the Chariots route that we have had that starts somewhere and runs through town and goes someplace else. But to have a local transit experience in Monmouth Independence is just cool. Have I ridden it a lot? No. But do I value the fact that it's there? Absolutely, I do. And every time I see it go by, just absolutely jammed with people, I'm jazzed. I think it's great. So I'm glad we have this moving toward this agreement. We've needed it for 3 years at least. So, yay. Thank you.
Councilor Lopez?
Oh, sorry. There was one other comment I wanted to make. Council President Carey, the maintenance happens at Chariots in Salem. So the building that we put, the trolleys will now be stored there, and so they will go back and forth, but any maintenance actually occurs in Salem where they have their operations, because we don't have that here. Okay, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And since this is a work session, I'm going to just provide a little bit of feedback in areas that I have some level of expertise. We've talked a little bit about about demand and also about operating this as a business. This is a funny space of city operations where we are intersecting with a service that does exist in the private sector as well, right? And so other areas where Monmouth has done this, we have a power and light department, right? So we have our own power utility. I think that, the power utility is a shining example of how things can be done successfully and leverage, public initiative to bring resources to the city in ways that they wouldn't be available otherwise. I also think that, there's some examples of where the cities have struggled in the past in this space and then eventually found success. I'm speaking of Minnet. And as you all know, if you've heard me from this space in the past, I'm a big believer of the promise that Minnet holds for these communities. I also recognize that in the past, Minnet has had some challenges, and they are on a solid spot now, but that hasn't always been the case. So as we try to take government and fit it into a box that intersects with private business, I'd encourage us to try to keep mindful of defining some of these things in ways that maybe doesn't fit. And I'll pick on Minnet for a moment. One of the early issues in Minnet was that the number of potential customers in the legacy footprint was calculated incorrectly. The reason I bring that up now is because I hear about us talking about, demand and true demand. That figure will always change based on other factors. One of those factors is the number of individuals that we bring in from outside the community versus the number that are already here. Another factor, and a huge factor, is the university, which I am very glad that that university is has space on, that Western has space on the governing body. Another factor is whether or not there's a fee assessed. And so demand is not a fixed point, and to suggest that we could find a true demand level is, I think, could lead us down a path where we could come to some conclusions that, you know, might not accurately reflect the business need or the business situation. I do fully support the concept that free ridership would not translate to paid ridership, and that there are individuals who are utilizing this service now who likely would not, even if there was a minimal fee assessed, utilize it. But I think where we got MyNet right is to look at it from, you know, a holistic standpoint that Councillor Oberst was getting at in terms of the total net positive impact for the community. Reducing the amount that we spend on our street maintenance and reducing those vehicle passings up and down Main Street. Reducing the traffic load, making this community a more beautiful space, a more livable place, a place that developers will want to come and develop, the place that business owners will want to bring their restaurants and bring their businesses. This, I believe, is a huge factor of the success of the trolley, and I want to ensure that those factors that, albeit can be somewhat difficult to quantify, those factors play into these decisions because those will help us to make solid long-term determinations. In the business world, a lot of times you're looking for a niche. You're looking for where your customer is and then trying to find a way to build a product that would achieve those goals. In the business world, if you try to distill it down to, well, what's our break even if we do it at exactly this amount versus that amount, those things can inform those decisions, but those don't ensure the long-term success of the business. They ensure the short-term feasibility. And we have to balance the two. I think asking all these questions is valid and valuable, and I'm glad that we have all these voices at the table. I just ask that we not lose sight of either of these aspects as we embark in this journey. Thank you.
All right. And Councillor Belts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to remind people it is wonderful that Chariots is going to be so heavily involved, because all of these questions are the things that Chariots has dealt with. Fare box recovery will never pay for a transit system. We need to make sure that we discuss things like transit-oriented development and what that could mean for our community, knowing that transit could serve areas that we hadn't even thought about where individuals want to build businesses. We just, and again, we did do a survey before we launched this. We didn't launch the trolley was not launched willy-nilly. We did surveys within the community. And so I would encourage anybody that doesn't have that previous information to go back and read what the community said when we asked them about public transportation within this community. That's one of the reasons we built it, because the people asked for it.
And I'm guessing that Chariots and transit systems have a whole bunch of ways that they have done research on what if you now charge X amount more and what's that do to ridership. So I know all that expertise is out there too, which again is part of being Chariots is helpful. So.
One other note or reminder I'd like to do is to remind the council that we were able to get STIF funding through Chariots, which went through their board of directors. So basically there's a certain pie with a certain amount of money that they get from the state, and they were, because of the successfulness of the My Trolley, willing to take $750,000, it's approximately $750,000 of those fundings and put it towards us, and that's for the biennium, so that's $325 a year, which we need about $900,000 a year. So, but just to say, just a reminder that hopefully that's going to be announced in March. It's been approved all the way up unless something happens, but just a reminder that we do have that coming, and we should continue to have that coming.
All right. I think we picked this apart quite enough. Except I'm going to just throw this in there. Number 18, next to last clause about the divvying up the assets if we have to, and the shelters. If I recall, the shelters are going in current chariot stops. So it feels like if we don't operate a trolley, our first default would be just to let chariots maintain the shelters, rather than us take them out or something else. If that would be a default. Okay, that's it. And as you say, we'll see this again. So thank you for all the work. And that brings us to reports. For Mayor's report, I'm going to pass on that this evening so we can get on to our other business, but we'll take reports of council boards and commissions. I do want to take a moment. We've mentioned before, we have an opening on our planning commission, and we kind of let the holidays get away without considering filling that. So what I'd like to offer is this. If we can announce the opening, really get us together, encourage folks to consider applying for that. I would like to keep that application open until March 5th or through March 5th. And hopefully sometime in that next week to 10 days, get a couple of us together, do some interviews so that we can appoint on March 18th. That's kind of a long time to keep that position open, but need to get back on that. So that sound good? So start thinking of how we can diversify our representation and get somebody who's willing to put in the time on the planning commission. So do your work. Okay, other boards and commissions. What's happening out there? Kel.
Well, we had a little bit of snow, and the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance board did not meet this past Thursday in light of the snow. That meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m., and I look forward to bringing a report back from that at our next meeting.
Councilor Ober.
Tree board meets Thursday at 6:30 at Power and Light. This is my answer to the snow. Okay. Spring is on its way. That was just like the last gasp of winter. Trust me.
Doesn't look like we've had a lot of other activities. And I will tell you, my cat is shedding, so that was definitely the last gasp of winter. And that brings us into our city manager report. Rochelle?
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things. I wanted to let the council know that last week, well, it'll become effective March 1st, and this was in the Friday notes, but Councilor Ober said it doesn't hurt to say it twice. So we have a civil engineer that works on our staff. His name is David Carr, and he has been working in the Public Works Department for 6 years. I reorganized with Russ's support, and we are moving him to and promoting him to city engineer. I am having him relocate his office to City Hall. I believe you know that from my past, in my previous position, I was able to get a lot of projects completed, and a big piece of that was working directly with the city engineer, and so that's one of the pieces that I was missing. Additionally, it's going to help the City Hall become a one-stop shop for development. If folks come in for a permit or whatever and have an engineering question, currently they have to call David on the phone at Public Works and hand the phone to the person, and that's doing the phone call. Now he will be here, he will be accessible, he will be able to go answer those questions. And so it's a way to spread his skills across the departments, and everyone's really excited about it, and so is David. So I wanted to let you know that that was happening as of March 1. Another exciting thing that we've been working on is Suzanne Duffner and I have been working with Representative Evans and our attorney Lane Shetterly and housing staff with the governor's office on a potential UGB amendment to a bill that's currently in House to increase the supply of vacant residential land inside the city. Currently, the city has less than 12 buildable lots available. And so it's in the process. We're working on the language right now with Lane and the governor's office, and Suzanne's doing a fantastic job. And so we will keep you updated and let you know how that progresses. So very exciting about that. To give you an update on the church in the park, the building department approved the change of use building permit for the shelter located at 300 Stadium Drive North. Their architect plans to submit their deferred plan submittals for electric, fire sprinklers, and mechanical work in the near future. And I think Suzanne estimated 4 to 6 weeks probably, but that's obviously an estimate. This Friday, we are doing a Public Works facilities tour. We put this out to the Budget Committee for anyone who isn't, if you haven't had that tour or would like it. So Russ has agreed to be the guide, and Barbara's going to drive the brand new shiny senior center van, and we're going to load up and go around so that the Budget Committee members can see all the facilities and really understand when you're looking at the budget what that is or those things are. So excited about that. February 25th at 6:30 p.m. Will be our Budget Committee kickoff meeting. This will include an update from Finance Director Susie Marston. We will also be reviewing the LOC's new revenue toolkit, which has just came out in the beginning of January, and then also some trainings on the effects of measures 5 and 50. And so just to get everybody prepped for the budget. Other dates coming up. February 23rd will be the local leader. Okay, so this is the Senator Merkley's town hall. We forwarded emails to you. You may have already received them as well. So if you replied to that, you would have gotten the information that you need. So that's Sunday, the 23rd, and there's a local leaders meeting at 11:30, and then it goes into a town hall. But please RSVP so that the senator's office knows you're intending to participate, and that meeting is in Dallas. February 27th will be the MICC 60th Annual Community Awards. That's at 5 to 7:30 p.m. February 28th is the Monmouth Strategic Goal Refresh with Sarah Singer Wilson. That'll be here Friday from 3 to 7. March 6th, again, is the Town Hall. And the focus of that will be the strategical updates. Then March 20th is going to be a busy day. It starts off with the State of the Cities event, and then it goes into Dress Like Fred. And I think there's something that evening as well. Also, Barbara and I met with AJ Foscoli, who's the city manager of Falls City, and we have scheduled the van transfer for April 3rd at 4 p.m. And I'll put that out to the council to see if anyone has the time and could come over when we transfer the van to the city of Falls City and their veterans community group. And that is all I have.
Excellent. And as far as the city engineer, we have had a firm as our engineer of record, right? So whatever contract we normally would have paid them, then we won't be using that anymore, right?
That is correct.
So this isn't a totally new expense. All right, and that brings us to council comments and announcements of other things going on that she didn't mention. And I think all of us, one thing that Rochelle did put in her weekly report to us, we would all echo, is thanks to our incredible staff for working through the snow event, the last one of the season. And that includes our power and light, our public works. I actually was sitting in a parking spot downtown watching the public works truck go by with the plow on the front, and our communications. So really having all that coordination and the amazing way that we got through that. I think we all really, really thank and appreciate our incredible staff. And our city manager sitting down here in City Hall. Yeah. Other council comments or announcements of stuff going on?
I would just like to remind everybody that Thursday, whatever Thursday's date is, the 20th, at 6:30, to 8 o'clock is the Black History Month celebration at the Senior Center. So it's going to be a really fun event. I actually saw the practice of the performance, and it's going to be very touching. Bring your Kleenex. It's going to be really cool.
Thank you. So one of the things I was thinking of over the last couple of weeks was that every few years there seems to be shifts in political trends and elected leaders and policies and laws, and it can be awfully divisive at times. We've experienced some interesting times the last few years. One thing that I think is unifying that we can all build stronger alliance around is what we've all pledged to support, and one of those things is the Constitution of the United States. We talk about it, we hear about it, we pledge to it. I've only read it through three times in my life, sad to say, and I need to be more familiar with it. So one thing I'd like to do is just read an article, a section of an article, and maybe build on that each opportunity that I have, but just to keep it brief. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives.
Thank you. And Councillor Lopez.
I'll be happy to pause my comments for some clapping for a reading of Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution. Yeah. Councillor Ridgway, thank you very much for bringing that into this body. As an individual who believes wholeheartedly in the value and power of the Constitution, it warms my heart and my spirits to hear those words read here. Thank you. I see a copy of a pocket Constitution over there. I think I have that same copy that I keep in my bag in my glove boxes. And I agree. We all could review that document a little more. I love this. I love this. Onto the comments that I had intended to make. I recognize that in our communities, people are hurting. Times are tough. I see it when I walk down the grocery store aisles. I see it in, our own families. I see it in spaces of division. And also that difficulty, that toughness in spaces when we all come together as well. I see spots of celebration, but I see a lot of resiliency in people coming together to try to support each other and to try to be there together through those difficult times. That sense is one of the reasons that that my family and I moved to Monmouth to begin with. As you know, as some of you may know, I'm not a long time Monmouthian, nor am I a native born Oregonian, although I married a wonderful Oregon girl and am setting down deep roots. Within that spirit, I would like to recognize the value that supporting each other in these communities has. And I also recognize that sometimes that those words of support can seem exclusionary. I think as we lift others up, it's never intended as a zero-sum game. It's never intended to be exclusionary. And I think that there are working families, there are a lot of individuals in the middle class and others who who feel left behind. And I can say, on behalf of the individuals who sit here at the dais with me, we're all regular people, and we all want what's best for every single person in this community. I also want to recognize that certain things that lift specific populations up do truly benefit us all. I think to the work that our economic development department's been doing with small businesses here, I see the fruits of that work everywhere. I look to the Americans with Disabilities Act and think a lot about the ways that has enriched the lives of everyone, even those who don't have disabilities. As a father of a very young child, I am so grateful that our sidewalks have ramps so that I can push a stroller up a ramp instead of try to struggle in the rain while I'm walking my son to his daycare in the morning. And so it's within that view that things that can help certain segments of the population do truly have benefits for everyone, that I would like to take a moment to read the land acknowledgement. I want to be absolutely clear that this land acknowledgement is not exclusionary, and that this land acknowledgement is intended to lift up a awareness of a group of people who have systemically been marginalized. And so this is to keep in our minds history of this nation and these lands that we stand on right now, so that we can ensure that we don't ever allow history to repeat itself. I read this for individuals in my family who can benefit in our community, who can benefit from this reminder. And so this is not an exclusionary act. This is an inclusionary act. And I think that we ought to include and lift up every group more often, as we will continue to read the Constitution here in this hall. So I will read this acknowledgement in that spirit now. We would like to acknowledge that Indigenous tribes and bands have been on the lands here and throughout Oregon since time immemorial. It is not lost on us that the Willamette Treaty forcibly removed these peoples from their homelands in 1855 to 1866, the year that the city of Monmouth was founded. We recognize the pre-existing and continued sovereignty and the federally recognized tribes that are a vibrant part of this region today. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and thank them for sharing their perspective on how we might care for one another, the land, so that it can take care of us. We commit to engaging a respectful and successful partnership as stewards of these lands. Thank you.
All right, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn before we head to the urban renewal meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, and all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed, so we can record each individual councillor vote. All right, thank you. So we are adjourned, and if we can just take a quick 5 minutes, we do have guests here for the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, so we don't want to take too long, but a quick break. Thank you.
Oh, we got the city manager.
Thirty seconds. All right. Thank you very much. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, February 18th meeting of the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency and ask Phyllis for the roll call, please.
Ms. Belts,
Here.
Mr. Carey,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Present.
Ms. McKeel,
Here,
Mr. Oberst,
Yes.
Mr. Ridgway,
Present.
Ms. Coons.
I am present, and at this time, we do have time reserved for public comment on business before the Monmouth Urban Renewal Agency. Do we have any public comment submitted? I'm seeing a lot of shaking of heads. All right, and that brings us to a consent calendar, and this body met so recently that you'll all remember the items that were in the minutes of January 21st, and I would ask for additions, corrections, or a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oberst and Mr. Lopez for that motion, and all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I heard 6 of those. Any nays? And that brings us to our business agenda. So we will start off in inviting Suzanne Defner to talk to us about the aforementioned Urban Renewal District General Assistance Grants.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman Kuntz, for that introduction. Yes, I have 2 general grant assistance requests tonight to present to you. The first of which is for a property located with 3 addresses. It's in the 1270 to 1282 Main Street East. Probably better known now as the Sunny's Coffee and Plant Shop, but it also has the dog grooming and the tattoo parlor there. So the owners of that property are seeking general grant assistance to help with a window upgrade. They have 19 single pane windows that are the old metal built when it was built in 1972, which are super and not energy efficient, and they are seeking grant assistance for half of that project to be able to replace all of those windows to a much higher thermal efficiency rating. So the total project cost is $8,645. They are seeking 50%, which is the minimum match request at $4,300. Again, to replace those windows and help make a much more comfortable working environment year-round and reduce some of that electricity usage. So just by way of background information, the property owners, the name sounds familiar. They were the recipients of an urban renewal grant request 2 years ago in 2023. That was to do some of the initial commercial remodeling repairs. This was the old Central Vet Clinic, for those who might remember that. So they did some great job with the painting and upgrading the ADA improvements and the parking lot. Just heard there was some sewer work that was part of that as well. So yeah, so they've made a number of investments to make that space come to life again and be fully occupied with 3 businesses. So this is kind of their next set of improvements to that building. Just trying to think if there's anything else I can tell you about it. So it does meet the urban renewal grant criteria by meeting the minimum grant match requirement, and it doesn't exceed the maximum grant award, which is $15,000. We do have funds that are available and have been budgeted for this purpose. It's also consistent with the goals of our urban renewal plan, but helps retain 3 commercial tenant spaces and provide those employment opportunities, and then also helps support goals of improved energy efficiency and reduced energy usage. So staff is recommending approval of the $4,300 urban renewal grant request. If it's approved, then there will be a grant agreement that the owners will need to enter into before they start the work, and they'll have a year to complete those improvements. So when you're ready for it, there is a proposed motion on page 4 of your packets. And with that, maybe it looks like there may be some questions. I do have the owners here with me, or one of the owners here with me tonight as well, so in case I can't answer them.
Questions of Suzanne? Mr. Albert.
So as the former owner of a single pane sliding glass door where the condensation would run down, hit the aluminum, freeze the door to the carpet, I can say that it is, very desirable to do this. Total number of windows is, how many again?
19.
And for this price, that's an amazing, upgrade to this building. So, I would encourage council to consider this seriously. This is an important upgrade for any residents or business to be able to do.
Yes, the board will actually take that action, not the council, but any other. And there's, as you mentioned, we have given this entity and that property prior assistance, and there's nothing that precludes us from continuing to do that or doing that again, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman, for asking that question. I forgot to clarify. So yeah, you can get one, you can do an urban renewal grant once a year. And so they've already completed and closed that grant out in 2024. So yeah, they're into their next grant cycle and able to apply for a new one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for asking that.
Mr. Carey.
Congratulations to the folks that know how to use the system that's designed exactly for this kind of thing. And good counsel on I'm sure your part, Suzanne. I want to remind council that this also, because of the energy efficiency, would also be in support of our sustainability value that we have said that we're always looking for, and here's a classic case for that. And to that end, and to focus any further conversation, I would move approval of the general assistance grant application for 1/2 of the eligible project expenses in an amount not to exceed $4,300 for the proposed window replacement project located at 1270 and 1282 Main Street East.
Second.
Can I make sure and clarify, there's, I believe, more than 2 addresses, so it's 1270 through 1282.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah,
Not just
I didn't put
those
the third address in there, so yes, it's through. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So amended.
Second amended.
Thank you for the corrected motion, Mr. Carey, and the amended second, Ms. Belts. Any other discussion or questions for Suzanne? Go ahead, Mr. Bidway.
So this isn't any concerns that I have over the application. It looks very reasonable and worthwhile. My question is just maybe some education on, you said that the amount was already available. If in these instances, if it were not apportioned to one of these applicants, what happens to that money that's set aside?
Was the question, just to clarify, so what happens if nobody applies for the grant funds? Like what happens to that funding or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We have had years where we haven't had applicants that come in to take advantage of those grant funds, and they basically roll over until we're able to use them in another fiscal year or for a different project.
But it has to be urban renewal projects because it is the urban renewal
Yes.
agency funding.
Absolutely.
It's
This is a
completely
totally
separate. It can't be used to transfer the general fund. It
Right.
can't be used for
Right.
operations of the urban renewal agency.
Yes,
Things like that.
only in the urban renewal district and only for specific projects that stay and remain are permanently fixed to the urban renewal agencies. We can't pay for tables or chairs or things that can come in and out like that. So yes, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, I will ask Phyllis for the roll call, please, on the motion.
Ms. Coons,
I get to vote on this. It's so exciting.
Mr. Ridgway,
Aye.
Mr. Oberst,
Yes.
Ms. McKeel,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Ms. Belts.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thanks, Vince, for coming in case we had any specific questions, and thanks for continuing to improve the building. And I'm sure the upgrades and the comfort level will benefit your customers as well as your staff, because let's keep that building and improve the look of a significant building in our S-curve. So thanks for that. And that brings us to our second application of the evening. Suzanne?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the second application is for a general grant assistance request for property located at 297 Pacific Highway North here on Highway 99. It's for Homestead Property Management is the applicant and the owner. And in this particular case, the project is to replace a failed sewer line. The property was initially served by a sewer line that connects to highway or goes under the Highway 99. That one, after trying to do repairs, some costly repairs to it last summer, unfortunately, those repairs collapsed during that process. And so now there's a new connection line that's proposed on the Powell Street side. This property's on the corner of Powell and 99. So the total cost of this estimated project is $22,047, and that's based on an estimate that's included in your packet from Willamette Valley Underground. And the applicant is seeking 50% of that estimated cost at $11,023.50. And so again, that's the minimum grant match requirement for our grant program. And this project, so it would includes the cost to dig up and remove that old line and then replace it with an upsized line. So right now it's 4-inch and then putting in a 6-inch. So what's the good part about that is that it will preserve that future redevelopment capacity of that site without having to dig it up and replace it again in the future. So that's a great capacity building portion of the project. The applicant is currently without water and sewer, so there is some urgency to this request. They've been without that service since the end of January, as the applicant that's here tonight can attest to. And staff does recommend approval of it. It is, again, consistent with the goals and policies in our urban renewal plan. It's helping an office stay occupied and used for property management. On that site, there's actually 3 office buildings. So while those other office buildings are not connecting into the line at this time, there is an older line that's serving one of the offices in particular that eventually will need to get replaced and now be able to tie into this new line that has capacity. So it's also benefiting those commercial uses as well. So staff is recommending again approval. There's a sample motion there when you're ready. Similar as what I stated in the last presentation. If approved, the applicant will be required to enter into a grant agreement that'll spell out the terms of this being a reimbursement grant after inspections that meet city standards and proof of payment of that. So, and again, they have 1 year to do that. So between these two grants, we're still under what we have budgeted, 60,000 for grants this fiscal year. These are our first two, so definitely have funds budgeted and available. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Mr. Oberst.
I noticed on page 11, that calls out a 6-inch sewer line. When I look at the bid, it says a 4-inch sewer line. And so I just want to make sure that the contractor knows that they're going to be drilling a 6-inch hole.
Yeah.
And that we know that that price is for a 6-inch hole as well as for a 4. Okay. And I see the applicant back there nodding. So good.
Yes, good eagle eyes. That you're absolutely right. This bid was prepared, and due to the timeline of trying to get this in the packet, we weren't able to get an updated one. But I did have verbal confirmation with our streets manager, Mark Landau, who had a conversation with Willamette Valley Underground and confirmed that that was an error, that it said the 4-inch, and that they are, yes, planning to put in a 6-inch for that. So thank you for noting that. Mm-hmm.
Other comments or questions?
Thank you. Ms. Kuntz, sorry. I move to approve the general assistance grant application for 1/2 of the eligible project expenses in an amount not to exceed $11,023.50 for the proposed sewer line replacement project located at 297 Pacific Avenue North.
And I would second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. McKeel, for the motion, and Mr. Oberst for the second. Any additional thoughts or questions on this one? All right, Phyllis, could you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Ms. Belts,
Aye.
Ms. McKeel,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Aye.
Mr. Oberst,
Yes.
Mr. Ridgway,
Aye.
Ms. Kuntz.
Aye, and that is unanimous. So thank you
Motion
for
passes.
doing that and getting that grant agreement done so quickly so we can get that work started. So,
Yeah, get it done quick. A 5-year-old is not liking it.
all right. Seeing no other business before the agency, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Record that appears to be unanimous.